I ask everybody I coach to journal if they want to, because I know that it's beneficial. And I know that if they'll do it, they'll see some benefit. It's sort of one of those things. It's like trying to get someone to exercise. If they'll do journaling in any form, I'm happy. Like write it on the wall, write it on your piece of paper, write it on your computer. I don't care as long as you're just getting it out. I even tell people if you're in the car, take your phone and put on voice memo and just like talk to it. But anything, any way you can get your thoughts and feelings out, then you can turn around and go, oh, that's just what came out. Here's what I need to do about that.
Welcome to Becoming Tantalum with me, Megan Bennell. Discover your brightest self in a journey of transformation and resilience. Let's embark on this path together, starting now. Hey everyone, and welcome back to Becoming Tantalum, the podcast where we dive into everything you need to be the next best version of yourself. I'm Megan, your life coach who's a little funny, just a little raw, and a lot obsessed about helping you unleash your full potential. Today, we have a special treat. It's going to be an amazing episode because we are joined by an incredible individual named Charles Rose. Say hello.
Hi, Megan. Thanks for having me.
Of course. He is a powerhouse coach who has helped countless people break through their barriers and achieve a real transformation in their life. He isn't just a coach, though. He's a motivator, he's a business leader, and he's a guy who's faced more than his share of challenges and come to the other side even stronger. What a great place for a coach to be coming from. So we're about to dive into the no BS truth of personal growth with him. So let's jump in. Charles, I always ask every guest a question before we get into you. And that question is, what is your typical morning routine and why is that the routine that you've chosen?
Great question. So morning routine involves getting up. First thing is help my wife get out the door because she has to leave early for work. So that's the first start of my routine. I've been really working lately to do some meditation.
Love it.
Which involves really getting centered. I find that if I don't take a minute to just check in and get still inside, then I'm kind of all over the map for the day. So that's been the biggest thing. And then just getting some nutrition in me and some coffee, and then I'm ready to get going. It's a very streamlined routine these days. It's not the hour that some people do.
That's okay. You know, I always encourage my clients and our guests on the podcast to have that routine, even if it's only just a few minutes of quiet and space so that you can, set yourself up for the day. So that's why I always ask.
Absolutely.
I find that that's really important. So many of us have the habit of just putting our feet on the floor and running, right? And just
Right.
getting right into it.
Right.
But setting yourself up for a successful day is important. So thank you for sharing that.
Thank you.
So you are a seasoned coach who has worked with countless people to reach their full potential, right? But let's be real. What is the one thing about personal development that you think everyone secretly wishes wasn't true?
That it's hard, that involves you going back and looking at stuff you don't want to look at. I think everybody wishes that it were easy, and it's like you have to actually face some things you've been avoiding facing so that you can get into the next good stuff, the next version of you.
Absolutely. So let's talk about that hard work a little bit. Let's talk about specifically what you do and kind of your MO when you're working with your clients to help them, unleash their full potential.
Sure. So the MO is the understanding that most of us are functioning on a subconscious sort of level. We're not really consciously creating the life that we want to have. A lot of us, and I feel like this some days, are just holding on to the bumper of the car that is our life and just trying to just stay on. And it's like we want to kind of get our way into the driver's seat. So it's supporting people in first just discovering that. For most people, it's I'm fine, everything's fine, and it's like, well,
So true.
it's like, no, it's not.
Yeah.
It's like if we wouldn't be having this talk if everything were fine. And it's like people don't realize the potential because we get into patterns. We get into patterns for survival.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, sure, you may have discovered how to survive your life, but that doesn't mean you're thriving in it. And so that's the opportunity, is to get people to that thriving piece.
I love it. It's funny because my friends know that if I ask them, how are you doing? They literally aren't allowed to say I'm good or I'm fine, because I followed up with, but are you?
But are you really?
They know they have to have an honest answer, or else I
Yeah,
won't let them go. It's so true, though. We label ourselves as just fine, but really what we're doing often is surviving. And I love that. So you're really focused on that awareness and really diving deeper than that subconscious just going that we have. I love
that's
that.
it. That's it.
I love that. Now, I'm a little bit of a science nerd. And so, is there anything like psychological research wise or brain science wise that you think everyone should know when they're trying to make these big changes? Is there anything, scientific?
Well, absolutely. I mean, in terms of looking at how you got here, cognitive behavioral psychology is really good at looking at how our foundational beliefs and principles got started. And they got started in the first 2 years of life. That's the concept of core belief. And I go into that with people usually in our first session. Is it like your home family environment set the stage for your whole life? And the opportunities to come dig into that and see, well, what patterns did I take on from that aren't really me?
I love that. Absolutely. So, all of those, all the patterns in our past obviously has created so far, unless we intentionally rewire that, who it
Yes.
is that we are and what it is that we do. So, if we as a person, if we realize that we are stuck in a pattern that we are just repeating, what is your go to method to help somebody call themselves out of that pattern, out of those habits,
Hmm.
and start
Hmm.
making real changes?
So the first thing is awareness. It starts with becoming aware that you've got this going on in the first place. And one of the key tools that I use with clients, I call a clarity process. And it starts with listing your subconscious expectations about a particular relationship, which might be your
Mm.
career or another person. And then we distill that down into a purpose statement. Why am I in this relationship? What do I expect to give to it? What do I want to receive from it? And again, that might be your career. What do you want to give to it? What do you want to receive? It might be another person. And then let's get clear about, well, now that you know your purpose, your why, what smart goals might get you closer to that? And then I go a step further and it's like, that's the doing part. What about the being part? Because in life, we've
Mm.
got the masculine and the feminine, the doing and the being. So, what part of you, how do you need to be in this relationship? So, that might be I need to be patient or open minded, that kind of thing.
I love it. I love it. Can we dive into that? Because when we first spoke, you had mentioned that the
Mm,
masculine and the feminine. Can you dive into that concept just a little bit? Because I'm a woman, you're a man,
yes,
and you made it clear when we talked that there really are masculine and feminine qualities or characteristics that all of us, regardless of whether we're feminine, we're a female or a male, that we possess. So, can you kind of explain that a little bit?
totally. I just find it really interesting. And so, in life, we have things that are binary. They're one or zero. They're this or that. And that's part of the duality that we live in the physical world. And so one of the things that I've found, and if you look back in history, yin and yang in Chinese medicine and philosophy, it's the masculine and the feminine. What is the masculine? It's the doing, it's the action, it's the focused, it's the organization. The feminine is about the chaos, the creativity, the feeling. Masculine is the thought, feminine is the feeling. I find it fascinating that some languages, like French, you have words that are masculine, you have words that are
Mm-hmm.
feminine,
Mm-hmm.
which is really interesting.
Yeah, not in English, but in most
Right,
other languages, that's
right,
true.
right.
Yeah.
And so, like you said, biologically, I'm a man, you're a woman. We all have varying amounts of masculine energy that's directed and go somewhere and go, 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 do, do. And then also we have that beingness in us that just wants to create, wants to be and feel. And so it's understanding those different parts of ourselves and understanding how to honor and serve both parts. I would add that the third part is child. My coach always told me we've got an inner family. So you've got an inner masculine, feminine, and child.
Oh, I love that. I
Because the
love that.
child needs to play and the child is always curious. So it's wanting to learn new things. So if we're not honoring our inner child, we're going to feel frustrated.
Yeah. So this is not something, this specific concept that I use in my coaching, but I can imagine that you need to almost introduce people to this family within them because they
Definitely.
probably feel as though they should be
Right.
masculine, they should be feminine
Oh
and
my God. I know.
they
I
should
know.
be an adult and really
Exactly.
aren't embracing all three of those family members. Is that a piece of what you do with your clients?
It certainly is. I found there are a lot of women that I work with that have become so fully charged with the masculine and the doing that it's time to kind of get back to their own feminine energy and the being and the how do you take care of yourself? How do you nurture? And likewise, there are a lot of guys that I've worked with who have more of a feminine energy balance. They're more nurturing. They more want to be the stay-at-home dad, and in that case, we're kind of revving up the masculine, the doing side. And so you had asked, how do I support someone in kind of getting to balance or getting to whatever their most authentic combination is?
Right.
Clarity process helps that. And then if someone's looking to change thoughts, we usually use affirmations.
And so, what would that, Charles? I just feel like I need you right now for my feminine side. I'm not going to lie. I am so in the mode of go, 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 go. And yes, just seeping back into that feeling and just being peace. So, what kind of thought work would that look like? What would it look like to try to reframe those so that I can be introduced back to the feminine side, to the child inside?
Okay, so with you, there's a lot of activity, and some of that I just sense is your authentic self. It's your
Yes.
real nature. But also very often the masculine gets tired. And so
Yes.
for that in you, it's like when you're going, 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 doing, 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 you're very much in control.
Yes.
And so what is it you're willing to surrender to so that you can relax and not be in control? Do you trust?
Ah.
What is it that you trust deeply enough to surrender to?
I mean, I'm not sure that this is the right kind of answer, but I feel like I trust the value that I have in my family and just spending time with them,
Totally. Totally.
which
It's like,
means I
do
need to
you
not go.
Well, yeah. And it's like, and seeing the value of not going and just being, because it's
Yeah.
like your kids just want your time and your energy, your
Yeah.
presence. I imagine your partner wants your time and your energy, your presence. And so very often, and that gets into core belief, because very often when we think that our doingness is tied to our ability to be loved, then we think that our identity is doing, and we think we have to keep doing in order to be loved. And it's like, no, 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 no. You get to be loved for just being Megan.
That's interesting. This has nothing to do with all of this, but do you know, as you were saying that, what I just realized is my kids get home from school and I love spending just at least a few minutes, no matter
Hmm.
what we have going on,
Yeah.
how was your day? But I realized right now that one of the questions I asked them, because they're not allowed to say just good, right? One of the questions I asked them is, well, what did you do at school today?
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think I don't like that word because I really don't want their productivity to
Hmm.
be attached to their value
You
because
could
it really
also say, how
isn't.
did you feel at school today?
Exactly. I'm changing that question.
I love it. That's
I
awesome.
love it. Very cool. Okay. So, I'm ready to change my life.
Hmm.
I've become aware. I've gone through this clarity process. I see the things that I need that I want to change. Are there any specific tools that you use and maybe like something, an action item that our listeners could do today that you recognize what it is that you want to change? You're ready for this. What can they do today,
Hmm.
change today, step they can, take today
Hmm.
to start making those changes?
I think so. When I work with someone, it's first, let's see if there's any obstacles in your way. If there's
Okay.
baggage you're dragging along with you, let's look to get rid of that. And then we can do what you were just saying, which is, okay, how do I action this? I would action it with a clarity process. And if someone, without taking the time to break that out, what you do is just start with getting clear about your purpose. So why are you in this relationship? And then that can take an hour, like really distilling down why you're in this relationship. Like I've done that for my business, my marriage, my friends, my own physical health, my,
Right.
all kinds of things. But the other thing I was saying is that on the baggage side is I would also have you look at, if you think about this particular, whatever the relationship is, like career, is there anything that's weighing on you from your past? Something like maybe
Mm,
someone where your dad said, you suck at this, or you're never going to be good at this, or a friend said something that's stuck with you. Then the opportunity
interesting.
is something I call a forgiveness process. And it's about releasing the past. And that is something your listeners could do pretty quickly. You take a place where you're still feeling a little bit of a zing from a prior, trauma. You first list, what do I resent? So you list your resentments. I resent dad for saying blah.
Mm,
Okay. Number two, are you willing to release this? You don't have to say I've forgiven it, but just, are you willing? Is there an openness in your heart? Number three of four is, what did you learn from this? What did this situation teach you? Maybe that you're stronger than you thought, or you're more resilient. And then number four, what do you have to be grateful for in this situation? Well, that might have happened when you were 9, and now we're an adult, and you're not there anymore, and you're so much more in touch with your own power. So I'm grateful to be here.
I love that. I can imagine the power of being able to keep your past in your past and not having that continue to influence, but be grateful for it
That's the
because
whole
it's,
idea, is to
yeah.
shift it from feeling like a wound to more of like an advantage.
And it's gotten you to exactly where you are now, which is
Precisely.
beautiful. And you can
Exactly.
love that. I love that so much. So if our listeners are thinking, man, I'm resonating with this a bit. What are some symptoms in their life that would indicate that this would be an amazing opportunity to help them reach their full potential? What kind of things would they be experiencing that tell them, yep, I probably need to reach out to Charles?
A sense of burnout, that the strategy I've been using to navigate life and business to this point isn't working for me anymore. And I'm feeling tired, frustrated, burned out. Also, I might feel like I'm in an imposter syndrome,
Hmm.
like I'm not, maybe it's not me, or I don't know if I can do this. So self-doubt would be
Okay.
another aspect of it. Ultimately, it comes down to it's like some message that comes from your heart that says there's another way of doing this, and
Yes.
we're not living our best life. Self, you start feeling, I'm sure I could be happier. I don't know
Yeah.
how, but you start to get a sense that something could change.
There's something different out there. There's something better out there. I
Yep.
love that. It's funny that you say imposter syndrome because I wrote a question that
Yes.
includes that. But this is about you. And I feel like it's so important for people to understand that we as coaches are still coaching ourselves
Oh God, yeah.
on a daily basis.
Yes.
And so the question that I wanted to pose to you was, how do you handle those days where perhaps it's imposter syndrome or
Hmm.
just self doubt creeps in, or when you just feel off? I mean, you have all these tools, obviously, because you help other clients. So how do you handle those days? Because we all have them.
It comes down to support. I mean, coaching is about supporting people. So if I'm feeling that and doubtful and human and frustrated, I go to the people that I find support with. So I go to my wife. She's amazing at this. She's also kind of an internal coach herself. So that's a massive help to me. I also have a spiritual advisor I go to sometimes. I actually have a call with her today, so I'm looking
Ooh,
forward to that. So I have a little bit of a team of people that support me, and some of it is just family and relationships or friends, and some of it's professional.
I love it. So I call that, when I talk with my clients, I call that really creating the soil that you want to grow from, and
Yeah,
making sure that those relationships that you have in your life are ones that are supporting you and nurturing you. And they all can be totally different, but you don't need to have relationships that aren't helping you grow, that aren't there to support you.
yeah.
I love that. I love that. You talked about there being kind of a binary situation in a lot of life. And
Hmm.
I always talk about how life is 50-50, and you
Hmm.
want to experience all of it. You
Yep.
want to experience the negative, but perhaps with more grace and less stress than you're doing now. And
Right.
you want to experience the positive. Can you speak to, because I think I think that there's this impression out there that if you work with a coach, you know, your life is just going to be grand and you're just going to be happy all the time,
Yeah.
right? And we
Yeah.
know that as the human experience that's presented to us, that's just not true. And
hmm
so what is it that you do with your clients, or how do you help your clients so that that negative 50 that we all are going to experience,
hmm
so that that negative 50 can be embraced and
hmm
appreciated instead of dreaded and stressed over?
So the first thing I do when I get on the call with a client is just check in. How are you doing? How's life been going for the last 2 weeks? Because I usually do every other a week as a cadence. And we see what's coming in the door. And if you're stressed, we start looking at why and what are the beliefs that underpin that. What is it that's brought you to this stressful place? And
Yes.
what meaning have you made of the things that have happened in your life since we last spoke? And then what can we use that as an opportunity for growing or realizing or having some epiphany? That's kind of how we target it. And then that might lead us to saying, hey, we need to do a clarity process on something else, or use another. I use like 20 different tools, but that's the main one.
I love it. So let's play a fun little game of myth or truth.
Okay.
I constantly am asking my clients, and other coaches have said the same, I want you to write this stuff down. I want you to
Mhm,
get it out.
mhm.
So, do you believe that it's a myth or a truth that journaling in any way, whatever, you know, that might look like for an individual, is something that is helpful on their wellness journey? Or do you think that that is not something that is necessary for them?
Oh, it's a big truth. I mean, journaling is having the opportunity to kind of talk to yourself at any given time and just get all your thoughts and feelings out. And it can be very cathartic, and it can also be useful for going back later and seeing where you were on a particular day and seeing, oh my God, I'm so much further along than I was then.
Yeah. Do you encourage your clients to journal at all? And if so, are there specific not requirements, but a
Yeah.
specific
Yeah.
kind of guidance that you give for them?
I do. I ask everybody I coach to journal if they want to, because I know that it's beneficial. And I know that, if they'll do it, they'll see some benefit. It's sort of one of those things. It's like trying to get someone to exercise. If they'll do journaling in any form, I'm happy. Like write it on the wall, write it on your, piece of paper, write it on your computer. I don't care as long as you're just getting it out. I even tell people, if you're in the car, take your phone and put on voice memo and just
Oh,
like talk to it. But anything, any way you can get your thoughts and feelings out, then you can turn around and go, oh, huh, that's just what came out. Here's what I need to do about that, if
I love
anything.
that. Yeah, it allows us to become an observer to
Exactly.
what's inside of us.
It's a tool for self-awareness. So definitely.
Absolutely. So, Charles, what sets you apart from other coaches? Why is it that I would choose to work with you
hmm
versus any other coach that's out there?
So I'm targeting business people because I find that they're the most motivated to do the personal work. They see,
Mm,
the benefit of it. So what sets me apart is that I've been there. I've had a tech company. I had a $10 million exit. And I realized that that didn't fundamentally make me happy. That was the epiphany that got me to coaching. It was like, well, this was great. I made my dad happy, which was what I wanted to do, but that wasn't as deeply fulfilling as I'd hoped it would be.
hmm.
That's why I'm here.
I
And
love that.
that's why I'm different, is because I've done the business side. So I have all of that experience, plus 25 years of going deep with people, looking at their beliefs, looking at, what are their foundational pieces.
Yeah. So I actually find your business story into becoming a coach incredibly inspiring. Would you be willing to
Wow.
kind of nutshell that for our listeners? Because I'm not sure that they know where you came from and what that $10 million exit was all about. Can you
Sure,
kind
sure,
of
sure.
explain that journey?
All right, I'll give you the nickel tour.
I love it.
So, born in North Carolina, when I'm 6 years old, my dad gets elected to the U.S. Congress. Grow up in Northern Virginia. He becomes chairman of the committee that oversees the tech on the Hill. So he becomes the gatekeeper. Well, a lot of people come and bring him stuff that he brings home to me. So I got a very early tech education before the IBM PC even came out. I got to meet Steve Jobs as a teenager, which was massively inspiring to me. I'd never met before anyone more passionate or knowledgeable. So from that, I became a programmer for 10 years, wrote books and newsletters on programming. I then became an entrepreneur. And then I came across an opportunity. There was a guy online who was selling his software as shareware. Back in the day, before all this, if you wanted to sell a piece of software, you put it out there, and on the honor system, if somebody liked it, they'd send you a check. And I had gotten a newsletter, merchant account for a newsletter, which was very hard to get in the late 90s because PayPal was just starting the same year
Oh,
we
yeah.
did. But I said, dude, you're making $1,000 a month in your college dorm, selling a piece of software, taking checks. Let's take credit cards and see what you do. Well, we went to 6,000 in 1 month.
Woo.
And we said, oh my God, we got a business here. So he
Yeah.
immediately quit school. And we partnered with a guy from Microsoft who had left to start a site called WinFiles. It was the biggest aggregator of shareware back in the 90s. And so that was the only deal we needed because that was our entire market. We did 200,000 our first year, 2 million our second. We were on track to do 10 in sales in the third year. And then the president of Digital River called and said, we want to buy you. We negotiated an exit, and 3 months later we did. But then it was an amazing ride. But then it also got me to say, okay, this is the pinnacle of what I thought I needed to achieve in life. Why am I so unhappy? And I've talked to so many other
Ooh.
people who've had success, and then we're like near suicidal 6 months later because they're like, I don't even know what I'm supposed to do with my life now.
Mm-hmm. So when you say that you're coming from a business background, I mean, you are coming from a robust building businesses successfully
For sure.
background. I can imagine that that would be incredibly helpful to those clients of yours that are coming from
Well, it's
business.
comforting because I'm not just doing something personally. It's like, yeah, I get it. I've run it. I've been there. I was the CEO.
Yep.
Um, and these tools are incredibly helpful in
Yeah.
that space.
I love it. Okay. One question more, and
Please.
then I'm going to ask how in the world we could get a hold of you. So if you could give our listeners somewhere between 1 to 3 pieces of advice that you
Mhm.
think are either motivating or life changing, what would those be?
So you have to believe in possibility. None of this works unless you believe a better life, another version of you that's more resonant, that's more authentic is possible. So I would invite your listeners to, when I was a student at university, I didn't realize I needed glasses, and I sat in a class and squinted at the board for a whole semester and got a bad grade, and then realized I needed glasses. And when I put them on for the first time, I could see across the street. I didn't
Magic.
even know you were supposed to be able to see across the street. And it's like that has been such a metaphor for me with coaching. It's like people don't realize they're supposed to be able to see across the street. They've just settled for what they've got
Yeah.
and are in survival mode. And so it's like take stock of where you are and see if that resonates with you. And if you are in survival mode, it's a calling to come out of that and be who you truly are. Give your gifts to the world because
Right.
that's where you're going to be the most satisfied.
I love that. You told me that story before and I totally forgot about it. It's the best metaphor though. It's so true. You don't even
Yeah.
know what you're not seeing. You don't even know what's possible
Yes.
until you're open to it. And then, I mean, it'll blow your mind. It'll absolutely blow your mind. So I find you incredibly inspiring and motivating and very capable of really helping people to find that inner peace and find a way of life that is just different and better than what they're doing for them. And hopefully my listeners do as well. So if we
Thank you so
wanted
much.
to get, of course, if we wanted to get in touch with you or wanted to work with you, where do we start? Where do we go?
Best way is just come to my website. It's charlesrose.coach. And on there, you'll see I've got a course I sell. I have a meditation pack I sell. Mostly, though, I would love to just meet with somebody one on one. You'll see my calendar link. Just set up a time. We can take half an hour and just discuss whatever's going on for you.
Perfect. Just a half an hour and it could change their whole life.
Exactly.
I love that. Well, Charles, thank you so much for your time and for being here today. It has been such a pleasure and very enlightening. Before we go, let's remember one thing, my friends, that change doesn't happen when we're sitting comfortably. It happens when we're honest with ourselves, when we allow ourselves to be open and aware, when we challenge ourselves to what could be better, could be different, and then taking those first very brave steps toward the life we want. And that first step you can take today is just get in touch with Charles, charlesrose.coach. Just give a half an hour of your time. That's an investment for yourself so that you can see maybe what glasses you haven't put on yet so that you too can see across the street. So my mission for you this week, pick just one thing that Charles mentioned and put it into practice. Just start small, stay consistent, and watch how even those tiny little shifts really can lead to big transformation. If you enjoyed today's episode, don't forget to subscribe, share, leave a review. And hey, maybe you have a friend or a family member or even somebody in your business that you think could benefit from this message today. Share it with them and ask them to go check out Charles, because I think that he has a lot to offer, especially those of us in business, from his incredible coaching wisdom. So thank you for tuning in. Charles, thank you again for being here.
Thank you so much, Megan. It's been such a pleasure.
Oh, good. I'm glad that you enjoyed it as well. Remember, my friends, that your journey to becoming your best self starts with you. So go out there, be brave, be bold, stay curious, become aware, and always work towards becoming your own version of Tantalum. Until next time, take care, and I'll see you next week. Thank you for joining me today. If you want to take all of these concepts and tools to a deeper level, apply them to your life, and watch the transformation happen, I would love for you to join the Tantalum Tribe. That's a monthly membership where all of our community has access to live coaching, self-paced courses, guest coaches, podcast study guides, anonymous question boards, and more. You too can transform your life using the tools and strategies that we have, with accountability built in from our community. I really hope that you join us at tantalumcoaching.com. That's TANTALUM coaching.com. Just click Join the Tribe. I can't wait to see you in there.
An Ironic Media production. Visit us at ironickmedia.com.